Hi, welcome back everyone. My name is Lauren Christensen and I'm one of your friendly Bryan LifePoint dietitians, again joining you to share another edition of What's for Supper. So let's get into it. This is one of my favorite recipes. Those of you that have ever attended any of my cooking demos, based on some of the recipes that I shared last week, you know that I have a great deal of love for quinoa. And this recipe also incorporates quinoa. So for me, if you have a pantry, or if you're like me and you have a pantry full of quinoa to be used in various recipes, this one is a definite must try. Again, I cannot take credit for this recipe. It was originally sourced from Life a la Mode blog, and I did make some adaptations, so I'll share those as we go through it, but you'll notice that the original recipe used kale. In my version, I use spinach, as it tends to be a little bit more of something that across the board people will consume or eat versus kale. So I'll share a little bit more about that as we get into it. But for me, this is just a great summer recipe. It's something that is nice and cold and refreshing. You could certainly do it hot if you wanted to, but to me, this just really embodies summer. And so as we get into, hopefully, what we anticipate is some warmer weather, this would be a great option for those nights where, again, you know, we don't want to spend a whole lot of time cooking, but can pop something together that's nutritious, tastes good, looks good, smells good, all of the above. So as I mentioned, the original recipe uses kale. Kale is kind of one of those love-hate sort of relationships with a lot of people. And up until, admittedly, a couple years ago, I myself was not a huge fan of kale, but I've learned to enjoy it a little bit more in certain things. So I wouldn't be opposed to kale. That being said, my family would not probably be on board with that. So spinach it is in our household. All right, so what you need for the recipe, you would do 3 cups cooked quinoa. And again, as I shared last week, quinoa is a lot like rice, where it will expand as it absorbs all the fluid. So generally speaking, you're going to get double what you start out with from a dry perspective. So 1.5 cups dry, and then you put double the amount of water in there, cook that up for about 15 minutes on the stovetop over a simmer. Once you have that ready to go, you're going to want to cool that. And we'll talk about those directions a little bit further. But while you are cooking the quinoa, it's a great opportunity to chop up some of your vegetables. So 3 cups of a rough chopped spinach. Again, you could do whole spinach if you just wanted to use that as a bed for the other quinoa salad type things. But 3 cups chopped spinach, a 1/2 cup of Kalamata olives. Again, this kind of has a little bit of a Greek feel to it in terms of the ingredients that you might find. 1.5 cups cherry tomatoes. So I certainly am looking forward to my garden producing and being able to use tomatoes and cucumber that we get from that. 1/2 cup of cucumber chopped, 1/2 cup of orange bell pepper, and then a 1/2 cup of green onion. You could also use red onion. When I've done red onion in the past, in my households, it's a little much, so sometimes I will go ahead and saute up that if I do choose to use red onion. 4 ounces of feta cheese. You can get a lower fat or just a regular feta cheese, whatever you prefer, and then a 1/2 cup of chopped walnuts. You're going to make a vinaigrette, pretty simple. It's just 3 tablespoons lemon juice. I tend to prefer fresh lemon juice, but you can use the pre-bought lemon juice as well. 3 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar, a tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil, a little bit of pepper, just to, depending on your taste preferences, you'll kind of adjust that accordingly. 2 teaspoons of minced garlic, and then you can also add 3 tablespoons of flaxseed. You don't have to, but for me, this is just a great addition in terms of getting a little extra fiber mixed in there. Little extra protein will come along with that too. So pretty easy, really not a whole lot of hands-on time. I mean, for me, I can chop up all those vegetables in about the 15-minute time frame that the quinoa takes to cook, and then you have a little bit of cooling time in there too. So like I said, you're just going to follow the package directions for preparing the quinoa, let it cool properly, and then as that is occurring, you're going to chop up those vegetables, whisk your vinaigrette ingredients together, mix all of the salad components, so the vegetables and the quinoa together, and then drizzle it with your vinaigrette and enjoy it. So again, super easy. For me, a lot of these items are items that I would traditionally have on hand at home. You know, again, some of the vegetable options we might have to purchase and plan ahead for those things, but for the most part, we would have spinach, we would have tomatoes, cucumbers, some kind of a bell pepper, whether it's orange, you could obviously substitute what you have in there. With this, it does serve 8 to 10. The nutrition information is based on 10 servings. So it's 179 calories, 11 grams of fat, 17 grams of carbohydrates, some good fiber in there, 4 grams. Sugars are low at 3 grams. Sodium is 222 in terms of milligrams. And then there's 6 grams of protein. So again, what I love about quinoa is that it is a complete source of protein. And it's also naturally gluten-free for those individuals that have to avoid gluten for celiac disease or gluten intolerance. If you do want to enhance the protein content, you could certainly add in some black beans, some chickpeas. If you're wanting to keep it just solely a more plant-based option. Otherwise, this also pairs really nicely with a grilled salmon. So, you know, again, there's lots of options to really use this how you see fit, but hopefully you can have an opportunity to try it out and that you really enjoy it and becomes a staple recipe in your households. As always, choose or make every time that you eat an opportunity to nourish your body. We hope that everyone is staying really well. We're getting excited to reopen hopefully soon, and I look forward to seeing you all back within the walls of LifePoint. Until then though, if you do have other questions, please feel free to reach out to me via email at lauren.christensen@bryanhealth.org. And I hope that you all have a really great rest of your week and try out a new recipe. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye-bye.